Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to Stormworks, and we are back working on the submarine once again. I know I told you the uploads have not been consistent. I'm sorry I missed earlier this week. I got sick, and I still sound a little sick, so I do apologize. But it is currently -5 out right now where I live, and that's in Fahrenheit, not in Celsius. But yeah, so trying to stay warm. If the heater kicks on in the background, guys, I'm sorry. Not going to turn it off for this one. But anyways, I'm doing some really just kind of unimportant stuff in the background already. We've already got into the build. I know we're rushing right into it, but this is just going to be an external drain and fill for the reactor water. So you will basically be able to replace the reactor water. Say the reactor starts unfortunately leaking, and you fix it, then you need to be able to put water back in it. So that's kind of what this is for. And I'm going to add some gas buffer tanks just so you can basically, it's going to pressurize the water system, which means we're going to need these pumps. But the idea here is that it will contain all of the gas, and then we'll put in a liquid, basically a liquid only filter on the other end of it. And that way you can keep the radiation inside as long as you don't, spray the water everywhere. So these are just going to kind of act as little filters for the radiation, I guess. And yeah, I'm not going to get too much further into that. It's not really important. The rest of this episode, we're going to go towards the command and control center in the submarine, and we're going to start working on some of the interior of that. And then if we have time, we might do a little bit of exterior paint work. I don't know if we'll actually get into that, but I do want to get a good chunk of some of the displays in the command and control setup. And with that, I'm kind of explain what some of the stuff is going to do. This submarine is going to be pretty complicated towards the later half of the build, I guess, mostly just because of all of the plumbing and all of the weird stuff going on. But I hopefully will be able to explain it to you in a pretty simple manner. So there is that. But anyways, we've got the fill pretty much finished up at this point. Got a little tank there for a filter. Hopefully we will keep all of our liquid in the reactor, and then we will hopefully keep all of the gas also in the reactor. But if you don't keep all of the liquid in, you can refill it now. And jumping ahead a little bit, you guys are getting a tiny sneak preview of some of the stuff we will do a little bit later. I did flip the videos or the order of the two clips around that I'm using right now. I just figured you guys probably are, I don't know, probably a little bit more interested in what's going on in the bridge. So I want to get this out of the way so we can talk about the bridge and a lot of the control systems for the sub while we're at it. But last thing we need to do is I do need to get a hatch on the connector for that orange pipe, which is our reactor fill and empty. So I do want to make a special little, I guess, compartment for it. So if you are connected to a base, shore power or whatever, you open this up, and then that's kind of when you could service it. So this is going to be its own special compartment. I probably will put some sort of security lock on it as well. That way people aren't opening it up and just, using the reactor water as fire water, which is probably a pretty bad idea. But yeah, not too complicated, pretty simple. We're just going to put one hose in, and we'll get a couple controls in there. But you guys don't really need to see the nitty gritty of the detailing and all of that. I am excited to kind of talk about some of the controls we will add later on, and I am excited to also get some paint on this thing. It's been unpainted for quite a while, and my copy's been painted, but obviously I'm a little bit further ahead in the build than you guys see in the videos. So I'm pretty excited to show you guys the paint. I really like how it's coming out. It's gonna kind of come in waves like I normally do. A lot of the things I do, but we'll get there eventually. Anyways, this hatch is basically done. Again, we'll come back to this. I'll do a little bit more detailing off camera, but for the most part, the pipe's in, the pumps are in, all of that's fine. So you can refill the reactor officially now. Enough of that. We are going to go and get into the front of well, not the front, the command and control of the submarine, and we're going to start working over there. So these three gauges, really, they are for our main gases that we want to track, not fluids. Nuclear submarine don't really need too many fluids, so the fluids aren't really important. The gases are a little bit more important. So we're going to check our oxygen storage, which is the, if you guys have been following along in the series, these green tanks. We're going to also hook up our mixed air storage, which is the blue tank. And then the other one is going to be our emergency ballast air. And so the first two are more or less self-explanatory. I'll explain them a little bit if you guys didn't see us hook us up. O2 is obviously pure oxygen. It's there in case of fires. And then, obviously you evacuate the CO2, pump more air in. You can't really get the mix right if you're just pumping in the atmospheric mix in the submarine, right? If there's a fire, if you're just pumping in atmosphere without filtering a lot of it. So it's easier to kind of just bleed oxygen off of a hydrolyzer. We need a source of basically pressure, as silly as that sounds. So, and we have two different ones, but I don't want to pull from the steam on the reactor because then you need to create more water for the reactor. Right now it's a closed loop, which is working really, really well. So I don't want to mess with that. So basically we can use a hydrolyzer, which if you don't know, it's part of the space DLC. You will need the space DLC. I'm sorry. But we can use a hydrolyzer to split the H2O molecules into two hydrogens, one oxygen. And then we're going to pull off those two hydrogens. We're going to send those off to our emergency ballast surface air. And then the oxygen will go into a pure oxygen. And then the mixed air we're pumping from the surface. So that's kind of what those three are for. The emergency surface air is pretty much what it sounds like. And I actually had a funny, and I need to go back and redo the controls. I want this to be EMP proof, which means I need to make this switch a actual hand valve, which is fine, but it's going to take some rerouting. But essentially the emergency ballast air is emergency air that will basically force water out of the ballast tanks to make the submarine surface without any power on the ship. So when I said EMP proof, that's kind of the idea. We have this big bank of air that we can just slam into the top of the ballast tanks and force all of the water out of the bottom. And this will make the submarine surface slowly without any power or pumps. So it's kind of just a safety thing. But for now, I am just kind of playing with indicators and, lights and that kind of stuff. So we were actually talking a little bit about this earlier in my Discord this week. If you guys haven't seen, definitely check that out. There's a link down below. But we were kind of talking about some of the design language in the interior work and that kind of stuff that I do. And I was explaining that a lot of this stuff that you will see me do is I put a lot more effort into indicators than into inputs. So this is kind of what I'm talking about. So these three gauges, you couldn't just label them if you want, but I want to make this kind of look like a big, nice control panel. But I also don't want you to have a ton of controls, as silly as that sounds. So I want a big, nice control panel because they look cool, but I don't want people to have to read a manual to use it. So that's kind of the idea here. But I'm not going to get too much into that yet. I'm going to actually hit you guys with a time lapse real quick. We're going to get a bunch of stuff kind of placed on this wall, get this wall looking a little bit better, and then we'll talk about it just a little bit more. All right, so that was kind of mostly just a lot of paint blocks and that kind of stuff, but I did want to show you guys the kind of process to that. So I will spawn this thing in just a moment. We are still kind of going super light speed mode, but I'm just hooking up the rest of this logic. So give me 1 second, and here we go. So give it time, and I'm not happy with how those look still, so I'm gonna change them to just green. There's also a lot more indicators we have to add onto this wall, but I did want to show you that kind of lit up. And these are the really big ballast air tanks down here. So these 8, which there's 2 for each side's front and rear. So I guess 4 for each side. But I am just messing around with some of the air pressure levels real quick, just to make sure that all of the gauges are calibrated correctly. That is kind of a pet peeve of mine, so I do like to make sure that those kind of all make sense. And for those who don't know, on these gauge displays, use the secondary display. That's the red needle, not the primary. I don't really know why there's 2. The red looks a lot better. But enough of that. I'm just yapping around. We are pulling in some level of air, but it looks like we're not really pulling in as much air as I would like. It's going down, but it's probably because it's getting drained into the ballast tanks. But as you can see, sorry about the noise. As you can see, more noise. As you can see, the emergency surface is in, but that's the switch that I need to change to an actual manual hand valve. So going to be really annoying because I'm going to have to run a pipe run up there and back. But for the safety of the crew, probably worth it. I probably worth it. At the very least, I need to have a separate handle down in the actual engine room that you can flip to make the submarine surface. But I don't know necessarily if I can get a pipe up there. We'll see. It's actually kind of annoying because the pipe that I need to get up there is on the opposite side of the ship, 2 floors down. So we can make it happen. You guys know I like plumbing, but that's going to be not fun. Anyways, you guys could see the absolute mess of pipes and plumbing and logic that we already have going on in this thing. So trying not to overcomplicate it more than I need to, but that is something that I definitely want to have. I want that to be a manual valve. So sorry about me just rambling on about that, but I do feel like that's a pretty important safety feature to have on a submarine, at least a submarine that's likely going to get shot at. And this thing's probably going to get shot at. It has ICBMs, so not necessarily a friendly submarine. But anyways, I'm just going to jump forward here a little bit. This is a little bit more or less what it looks like now. And we've got so much more work to do in here, but this is going to be, there's a few more controls to add onto this kind of wall, but this wall is mostly just for ship diagnostics, I guess. So we're going to go down here, check our ballast air in the very, very noisy engine room. So I do apologize for that, guys. You guys, if you have headphones on, I'm not your guy. Sorry. But anyways, those are also doing what they need to do. And yeah, everything should basically slowly fill up. So that's kind of the goal here is we want everything to slowly fill up, but there is a sequencing order to it. We need to make sure that our oxygen and our air are filled before our emergency ballast resurfacing stuff. And that's just kind of an important order of operations, because if you didn't do that over time, there is a good chance that you could just be sending the air you're making into the ballast tank pressure stores, and that would be not too great, because that means you are not making the oxygen that you need. So it is metered off the oxygen, the air, and then the ballast tank is kind of just like a spillover, I guess. So you'll see the mixed air line goes in there, the excess oxygen goes in there, the air from the top of the submarine from the atmosphere goes in there. So it becomes a really, really strange mix of air you wouldn't want to use for anything, but we just need it to be high pressured, high volume. So all of this back here, I'm just checking around on all of this. Some of this seems like it's not running as fast as it should be, but I could also be crazy. I don't know that's going on in the background, and for some reason Bungling Raiders is on, but yeah. So I did start with absolutely all of the tanks empty. As you can see, it's pumping in a good amount of air, and that is not pumping in air. We do have to fix that. So that should be pulling in air from that winch. That was kind of our last supply. So that is a problem. Definitely gonna have to work on that because that's really, really important. The whole floating periscope thing is basically the reason that we one of the reasons we're building the sub this way. So we need to be able to suck air in from under the water. But anyways, that's a problem for another episode. Guys, I know this one was a little bit short, but if you made it to the end, thank you so much. That's all I have for you guys in this one. If you guys are new here and you like this series, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. We will definitely get some more videos out. The submarine will get finished eventually. Just be patient with me. Anyways, thank you all for coming. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.